week 3 or week 4?
Yeah, and well, when you start recording, let's just also get the screen sharing added so I can do the presentation later. Sorry to interrupt you there, Eddie.
No problem. And Maisha is here as well. Congratulations, Maisha.
Oh, thank you.
Woo!
Thank you.
All right, are we ready to start? So welcome everybody again to our weekly sync. We'll go ahead and start off with demos. I don't know which pair wants to go ahead first.
Maybe issue 5 want to start and we can go next.
Sounds good. Oh, can everyone hear me this time? Yay. Okay, I'm happy about that. Let me share my screen. Okay, so this is from main. I'll just demo what we have. So local storage, I think, is empty right now. And I'm gonna put in a fake token, blah, blah, blah. When you enter a token that doesn't exist, you get an error. And let me grab one that does exist. Let's copy this. Ooh. And paste it here. You get brought to the list and it's added to, I can't spell, local storage. So I think most of our code, now code-wise, what we did was mainly just adding on the home, the little or, joining a list, the submit form, and doing the submit handler over here. Basically what we did is when you look for the token, you check if the token is there by going to database. Oh, and huge shout out to Jessica for telling us about this props.setAuth, because we were like, why is it not bringing us to list component? But this is really great. And that's pretty much it. Is there anything that I'm missing, Maisha? Or
No, yeah. So like it just checks if the list is available, like through the query, and if it isn't, just alerts you, or else it sets the token to local storage and it pushes you to the list view component. That's pretty much the bulk of what we did.
I'm gonna stop sharing now. Go ahead. Any questions, I guess?
Yeah, I had one. On the I didn't get it was on the screen where you're doing the local storage and then the set auth call. And I was thinking there's a few different ways you could do it, but you're doing two things that have the same concern. And I was thinking there's probably a few ways where you could like combine it. And I was curious if that came up for any of y'all when you were working on this, or if you have any thoughts on how we could do it moving forward. It's not part of the ticket, but it's just a nicety.
I'm not really sure, honestly. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts. We can definitely do it in the future, but I think we were just
which part are you talking about again?
So like that last method that we were looking at, I don't have it up right here on mine, so I can't share it right now. But
what? Oh, you mean
this actually goes really well into the pairing lesson we're going to do later. Yeah, so right there on line 31 and 32, so you're setting, you're getting it. Are you actually where? Let's see. So where's token coming from there? Yeah, so you have a token.
It's in state. Like it's in the hook, like that token variable, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I see. So you're picking the token up from the database, from remote, right? From the remote database. Is that what DB collection? But you're passing a token. Okay, so got it. So you get the token and then you put it in there. So we're calling two things. I guess what I'm getting at is on 31 and 32, we're calling two things with token. So we're setting the local storage to token because I guess that's how we set that. So then the future, the various areas of the app can utilize it. But then why are we setting props.setAuth token? Is that that's where we need to set it to like any value so it evaluates to true?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So I guess I was thinking maybe what we could do, and this is totally fine, but just to clean this up, because we're kind of doing two things that are related to setting the same thing. We could potentially like have setAuth be a function instead of just the setter for the state hook. You could have some kind of method that does both of these. So you call some method like, save authorization, and then that method would both set auth and set the token to local storage. Just so the person, like, you just think about it this way. If you're working here, if you're doing this in another component, you might, like it happened in this, you didn't know that you had to do both methods. So you could create a better API so that, if I'm coming along and developing a new component and I have to do something kind of auth related, I have a clean API. I don't get tripped up by knowing that I have to call two things. Again, it's just a polish thing. It's not a big deal, but I thought I'd mention it.
Oh.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because we could do that in our, because if you look in our generate token, we're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So we could simplify it there.
Yeah, it's just a dry thing. So like the way that you could approach it a few different ways is so right now it's being used twice in one file, but you could, don't do premature optimization, but it's probably in other components too. You can check, of course, but it's something that's kind of high up in the, hierarchy of the app. And so, yeah, you could just write a simple function that is, instead of being, set off, it's, maybe instead of passing down set auth, you pass down something else, like, whether you call it set auth or whatever the heck you call it, you pass that function down. And then that function would do two things. It would both set item or set auth, and it would also do the local storage set item.
Yeah.
Because it's the same parameter, you're passing the token.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
That's the only comment I had, but good work.
Yeah, thank you.
It's like super clean.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks good to me. Sometimes we've even we've created, like, you could even create helper files. So, and then we'll store everything there. That way, it also helps, at least for my team, it kind of helps someone else not messing. We have a lot of data stuff we do as well. So we'll create this big, humongous, like, helper file, try to break it out as best as possible and keep everything there, kind of like setting tokens and auth and stuff like that for authentication. And then, we'll all maintain it there. That way, kind of like what Sky said, is dry. And then if we need to change one thing, we don't have to go find it in 24 different places. We just go to that one place and, fix it there.
Yeah.
But it looks good.
Cool.
Anybody else have any questions, comments?
You're working pretty well.
Say it again.
Oh, it just seems to be working pretty well.
All right. Next, Kevin.
Jessica, shall I share? I have it pulled up.
Yeah. Either one. I have it. So if you want to do one part and I can do the other, or you can just do the whole thing. It doesn't matter.
All right. Let me pull this out real quick. All right. Can you guys see this?
Yep.
Pretty simple. So we got rid of some of the old UI stuff, as everyone could tell. And then we have our list view still routing to list. And then our add item here now requires these input forms. And you'll see from the list view here, I added these two as just kind of separate examples. It'll clean it up to like the lettering to check here on an add item. So if we add apples, you'll see we need this to choose one of these, and then that already matches. But we could also do something like apples with a bunch of exclamation marks. With using Regex, we clean it to just the text, including like capital letters. But we could add something, I don't know, header, and that'll add. We still have the erase functionality. So there's a little bit of disparity. Like if you saw there, we used an @ symbol or something. We could maybe make that a little tighter potentially, but mostly just checking that existing things list and preserving the original input as per the AC for the week, and then kind of figuring out some error handling when things do exist or people don't enter inputs to the add item form, which is all nice expected functionality thus far.
I love the regex in there. I definitely put it to the test.
Good. Kevin, do you want to do the code up there too, or?
Yeah, you can take that one, I guess. Let me see. Do I stop sharing?
Okay.
Yeah, so it's near the top. Okay.
Okay. So pretty much most of our code was pretty much in the add item. So I guess super simple, we added like these requireds, which was just a quick way to make those fields required. For our item check, it was pretty much, well, we broke it out into a few different functions. So for the, hold on, sorry, let me, yeah. So basically in the submit handler that we already had, we added this extra check, and this is going to run this existing item check function. And we had kind of our big issue, like the biggest, I don't know, brain teaser that we ran into this week was dealing with these, like this, this get, or no, where is it? When we were getting items from our database, that was happening asynchronously, and we couldn't figure out for a while why our check wasn't working. And what was happening is we had it in this submit handler where we were doing this check, but we kept getting the error that the item already existed in the database, because what was happening was this was being executed last. So it was going through, it was basically adding the item to the database and then running and giving us the alert every single time. So we were kind of stumped on that, and we ended up using, we had to do the async await in both of these functions to get it to go in the correct order. But that was kind of fun to figure out. So basically what we did was this existing item check draws all the items from the database, and then we go through and check it against our input to see if the item already exists. And then we have the sanitize item input where we call on this regex function, which just does the check that we want. So we tried to pull it out into a few different functions, but then basically it all gets tied up into this logic of the submit handler. So before we submit, we're just checking the items to make sure that they don't already exist. And then the rest, I think it's pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm.
So any questions on that one?
Can you go scroll down a bit
here.
or scroll up? Yeah.
Scroll up.
Yeah, I think to the, we're using the sanitize method. and you're checking.
Oh,
there you
where
go.
is it? Yeah, here. So this is, yeah, or I don't know. Did you have a question on it?
Oh no, well, I was just like reading through it, but it looks
Oh, yeah.
good. I like how you guys um are thinking in ways of like making sure everything's kind of a function and separated and kind of easy to maintain.
Mhm.
So that's the one thing, like the biggest thing I noticed that I would, if I was reviewing code, I would want to check like making sure like all that logic isn't in just one big function. So I like the way
Mhm.
you guys kind of like split that up.
Mhm. Yeah, that's something that I feel like, especially when I was first starting, I would have like massive functions and it would be like 100 lines of code. So I'm trying to get in the habit of paring them down and making them each do one thing. I know that's what how it's supposed to be, but yeah, I've fallen into that trap before. So we were trying to be mindful of it.
How was it working with Regex?
Good. Yeah, it was pretty straightforward. I've done a little bit with it before, so it was just kind of looking around and figuring out what we want. Well, thinking about how we wanted it to work, like what we wanted to count, what we didn't want to count, and just like figuring out what to put to make that happen. But yeah, it was pretty straightforward.
And I like the fact that you guys lowercased everything too to make sure, um, you know, everything was, make sure everything was matching. Because I know
Mhm.
I've seen issues where people forget to lowercase it, and then you get the apple with the capitalized A and the lowercase a, and then it becomes a big issue.
Mhm.
So nice work.
Cool.
Yeah, I really like the work with async there.
Oh,
I that was always like a super tricky thing for me. I'm still definitely have to like stop and sometimes like write down like, okay, like what's happening asynchronously, like what's happening synchronously, because a lot of times you need to be concerned about like you have synchronization concerns where like you were saying, where you can have two things. You can either be like, why isn't this happening, because it hasn't returned back and you already like early returned outside of that outside of that callback. And then the other thing can happen is that you can set up too many awaits, and depending on how you set up your awaits, you can set up like whereas you should usually await should be like a block that can return at any time, and you should design your code so that that block of code, so the await block, can return anytime and then have its action. So it's a nice little encapsulated block of code, it's curly braces. And so the idea being you send off like an API request, and then in that await block, then that await block has all the juicy bits needed to go and do whatever it needs to do to update, like in your UI. And so I was like looking
does
at
ours, because I actually haven't done a ton with it, like is this
I think some of it does and some of it doesn't. And I haven't looked at this code. I should have before, so sorry. I was
yeah, that's
looking at
okay. So we did it here. So this, I think,
so await and then
like this
if
is just
already
going and running a separate function.
Existing item check. So okay, so an existing item check. I like this for the most part. Okay, because yeah, so the await is going and it's running off to the database, and it has an effect when it returns. So sanitize item input
They're
equals
kind of running in a
comparison.
chain.
Yeah. So
Awaiting the await, basically.
so you
Yeah.
yes, so like in existing item check, if and I'm not saying this is 100% right because I haven't really read through this code, but I was saying like a existing item check can return like a promise. It can return an await. And then so like that return already exists, could potentially live within the then. So like so when you hand that off, you're handing off a promise to whatever's calling existing item check, and then it calls. Again, I haven't looked through this, so don't run it. This works fine. I'm just saying like optimization long term, this could be called what they call like a synchronization like choke point, where you like async awaits should generally be designed, ideally, they don't need to be, but they ideally where you can like send it back and be done with it. And that block, like everything's within the then block. So because right now there's a synchronization point on like that, the not existing item check won't return until the database gets called back. Again, does it matter? No, the database is quick enough. It's totally fine.
Right.
Yeah.
But in theory.
But yeah, say that call never comes back, the whole app would just hang with no error. Right?
Yeah, potentially depending on what's upstream. But like overall, I'm like hyper impressed that y'all are already using async await. Like that's cool. It was a big tripping point for me for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned it because it's something to be aware of. Because I haven't used it a ton, and this was a lot of like console log
Yeah,
in
kind of like
each
placing
function,
it and then moving it down
like
to like
figure out where and when each thing is being called, and then from there we kind of like
and then once you see it laid out, yeah, it totally makes sense kind of when you can see it, but trying to like get your mind around it from a blank page was kind of hard. And then once you see it, you're like, oh, that's totally like that does that does that, and kind of all the dominoes make sense, but setting it up is kind of hard.
For sure, and this works. It's great. So yeah, like awesome. But if you're feeling really, really bored, maybe muck around with it a bit more and see how you could, restructure it a bit to get everything within that then block. So the whole thing can kind of, you can return the await essentially.
So I'm just, which is it like this await and this dot then, or is it this await followed by this await, that where there'd be like a potential issue?
You could, so I need to look at the code a bit more and read the documentation.
Okay.
Again,
Yeah, no, that's
it's
fine.
never been a strong suit of mine, but for instance, you could return the await. So like those are called promises, and so you can return the promise. And so this code can basically be like, okay, cool, I'm done. Here's this thing that hasn't returned yet, and you can hand that promise back. And it's kind of like it's an IOU. It's like in the future, this thing's going to have a value, but right now it doesn't. But you can keep doing things with that, and then upstream somewhere there will be a synchronization point where it's like, no, we can't like update the UI until this thing returns. But there's no reason that existing item check can't just like hand off that await, because it can resolve later on. Again, this is all optimization. Y'all knocked it out of the park. You're at like 95, 98% of the way there. It's just if it was like a production app and you were working in a company, somebody might be like, hey, can you optimize that so that like we're not stuck in this function until this thing returns? And you could. You don't need to. Again, this thing's fast. And if I were hacking on a project like a pet project myself, I might just steamroll over this. I'm only bringing it up because it's the only comment that I've had.
Yeah, no, it's good. You don't know what you don't know until you do. So I appreciate you guys pointing it out. Cool.
Yeah, it was fun to work on. I went to a really great meetup on Thursday about like the task chain and like sort of diagramming all of it out with the call stack and like the execution context. So it was like felt very cool to have a little project this week and then go to a meetup specifically about that and be like, oh, that's the visual of what we were doing, even if we didn't quite understand it when we were coding it. It was like the week of promises somehow just kind of aligned. So feeling very interested by that topic.
It is really cool. And if you want to dig into it more, I think they have a free trial, or do you know GitHub for education?
I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah, so GitHub has this, you can like Google GitHub education. And so anybody can sign up for this as long as you have, I think you need like an .edu address. But like they're really, really not picky. Like I have my .edu address from ages ago. And so I'm on an education thing. And then with that, you get things like you get like $50 of credit of Heroku, of DigitalOcean. So if you want to spin up a
Yeah,
server,
there's a bunch
they give
of
you like a lot of companies have joined on board with this GitHub education. So and I'll post something in the channel later. And you can get discounts. And one of the things you can get is a website called Front End Masters, which is a really, really nice education resource. And they have a whole thing on like learning the nitty gritty of JavaScript. And I only watched it like when I was interviewing before I joined Zapier this October. I was like interviewing and I was super insecure about my JavaScript knowledge, even though I've been doing React for years. I had some interviews that I went into where I just didn't know some of the fundamentals and I was like super insecure about it. So I did this course and I was just like, holy crap. It was like what you're saying. It's like the call stack and promises and like, yeah, all sorts of just kind of nerdy stuff, but at the same time, it was really applied. It wasn't like like some things that you can get into, or like, you know, these like code golf where it's like, oh, do a bitwise operator to change these letters around. It's like, no.
Yeah, I've heard that as a really good like kind of next step for that like intermediate level.
Is it like the JavaScript, the hard parts? Is that the course, or because I was
yeah, JavaScript, the hard parts, yeah.
Yeah,
Cool,
that's
cool.
kind of
Yeah,
what
I was
this
looking at
exactly
it.
what this course was called, I think.
Cool.
And so you can get a
Code
free
Smith, but, yeah.
trial. Yeah, so if you sign up for the GitHub education, you can get like I think it's like a 6-month free access to Front End Masters.
Cool.
I
is really
tried to
nice.
sign up with my, because we didn't know if our like apparently our boot camp like used to work with them, and then they recently canceled it. So I tried to sign up and they didn't give it to me. But maybe if I make a new GitHub with my .edu, I'll try. I was
Yeah.
gonna get, my sister's in college right now, so I was gonna ask her to make a GitHub.
I know, that's gonna be-
I
like,
help
who can
one
I
way or
steal?
another.
Whose email can I steal? That's not a coder.
Mhm.
So
have
you don't
one
actually have to be too tricky with GitHub. Like your GitHub profile, you can associate multiple email addresses.
Oh,
So like I have like Zapier, but I also have my Gmail, and I
Cool.
also have like
Okay.
a different work address. So you can just add that, and then when you sign up for GitHub education, you can just like click which one you want to like try with.
nice.
Okay,
Cool.
cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I sent that
Yeah.
link along to my boot camp and they hadn't heard of it. No, they were like, this looks really rad. I was like, that would be a cool resource if you had it, but I've already graduated. So for the next wave.
Yeah, free 6 months access to all courses and workshops on Front End Masters.
A bunch of different stuff. Yeah, some hosting, JetBrains, Roku.
Typeform, Mailgun. So like Mailgun will give you 20,000 free emails. So if you're like doing a quick startup or something and need to do transactional email, bam, there you go. Looks like Flatiron School, they have free 1-month membership to Community Power Bootcamp, whatever. Sentry, 500,000 events.
It's a cool
a
way to
month,
say
so
you've used some of these products too, if you're even like applying to those companies.
for sure. Cool.
With,
Yeah,
like,
I'll
the
post
platform.
it. And I'll post it in the channel, and I guess we should, Eddie, or do you think we should start on the
Yeah.
lesson?
Nobody has any more questions about the code or the demos? Yeah, you can take it away, Sky.
Cool. We're going to talk about the thing that I have the least experience with, which is pair programming. So hopefully I learn a bit from you all on this one, but let me share my screen. Desktop 2. Cool. All right. All right. I know some of y'all are boot campers, so can you see my screen here? Pair programming on it?
Yep.
Cool. All right. Pair programming. You already know what it is. I'm not going to patronize you, but the kind of like formal way of pair programming is two developers sitting together in front of a computer. Obviously, in this kind of remote day and age, we're not sitting in front of each other, but we're all used to Zoom. So that's fine. But there's like the idea of the driver, the person who's actually writing the code, and the balance is pretty equal, but you'll generally, the big thing here, like it says, this person will try to verbalize it. Like the idea is don't just write code. You should be like, I think in this case, I'm going to actually separate this out into a function because we're going to be reusing it, you know, in these two places. And so by verbalizing it, it really helps the other person who's the navigator and the navigator's job isn't to be like a mentor or teacher, and nobody's better than the other person. It's just the idea that you're kind of like, hey, did you think about this? Or, oh, I've never actually done that before. So you actually both are afforded really great opportunities to learn. So like it says here, writing, offering guidance, suggesting alternatives, finding answers to upcoming questions and challenges. That it's kind of a big trumped up way of just two brains is better than one, because, you know, maybe one of you have dealt with async await and promises, and the other person has, you know, has called, you know, the API or dealt with his database API, and you can really kind of combine powers. So the kind of the process, or the formalized process, is, yeah, you hop on a screen share call. The driver, whoever that person is, shares their screen and codes while the navigator provides the feedback. And then the idea is like try to do it in some succinct, like kind of quantified way. Like, oh, we're like start at the beginning and be like, okay, we're going to achieve this. So either time-based or some kind of objective-based. The idea is push it up. Your companion can pull it back down and then switch roles. The way I've seen pair programming done poorly in the past is, you know, it just ends up being this kind of, usually people prefer one or the other, and that's totally fine. But the idea is, if you kind of spend the whole time one person driving, one person navigating, you can get into a situation where you're kind of just like speaking to the other person, telling them what to write, and you don't get the benefit of sharing your knowledge. And also receiving, you know, kind of advice and knowledge. And yeah, mindset and attitude. Yeah, it's a super daunting thing. Like, I get nervous every time, like I lose the ability to type for some reason when when I'm sharing my screen. And so I usually, and then I always think that the other person already has this figured out, that they're like way better than me. So I'm just like, oh crap, they're gonna like watch me typing, and I'm gonna know nothing, and I'm gonna not only gonna type wrong because somehow I can't type, but also like, you know, I'm gonna show that I don't know something about this synchronization problem. And they're gonna think I'm an idiot because like, oh, I've been working on this code for a little bit and I'm finally sharing it, and they're just gonna shoot holes in it. The idea is like, no, nobody's coming out to get you. Like, both sides really have to come at it with the beginner's mindset. You're solving a problem. You're not trying to critique each other. And yeah, like, it's pretty obvious, but it's an opportunity to learn, in the sense that you can both kind of, you could be like, oh yeah, I dealt with this problem last week in this project and blah, blah, blah. And you get like super applied knowledge, and you learn something from the other person's experiences. Similar to kind of how with our issues, how we're like, hey, does anybody prefer one, or who wants to, you know, who wants to take which issue? It's kind of like it's a consensus type thing. So try to figure out, you know, just have a chat. You know, we're all adults, you know how to cooperate. So just, you know, figure out who's going to drive. And yeah, navigator, don't be prescriptive, just be supportive. Again, I think some of these things are a little bit patronizing, because I think you all know kind of how to go about this. So I'm kind of curious, like, what are your experiences? Like, did you, in the boot camps you did and the education you've had, have you done a lot of pair programming, or is this your first time with the Collab Lab?
Wait, can I ask a quick question from that last slide?
Yeah.
What does Lego mean? Sharing your Lego?
Sharing your Lego. This is not my slide.
I know. No, I was gonna say, if you know, it's okay. I'm just curious.
I think it's more just like, I think it's like a reference to childhood, like don't be hoarding your toys type thing.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like an acronym.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot
No,
of
I think
jargon
it's
in
easier
this.
than that.
Yeah.
I've never heard that. I kind of just like, my eyes just rolled right over the top of that.
No, that's good.
If you think about it, like, I have kids, so like, you know, and one of our friends has a child same age as our 3, and usually they're like playing together, but sometimes they're fighting, and there's Legos, and one has a piece and the other has another piece, but they don't want to share it. They're fighting against each other, and they're trying to
They
figure
both
it
need
out.
the other piece.
Yeah, but they both need, if they just share the pieces together, like they'll figure it out, or they'll figure out the best solution to, building whatever they're built. So that's kind of like the idea. The only reason I know is because last cohort, I did the pair programming one. So like when I was digging into it and asking around, it was like, yeah, like imagine you had kids and they're fighting with Legos, just share the Legos and you'll come up together. So
I like
Nice.
it. I get it.
Yeah, I like it.
Um,
Anyway, back to your question.
yeah, no, well, since you asked the question, now you get to tell us, Jessica, how have you
Shared my
experienced pair
Legos.
programming before? Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I did it a ton in the boot camp. I was like, every day. And I will say it was like, I think pair programming is really hard for me. And I realize how, like being the navigator, I get very, okay. The first time I ever pair programmed was at a meetup, and I was so nervous. I was so, I didn't know or I knew that the other people that I was working with were much higher level. Like I was pretty new to programming. So that was super intense and like scary for me, but it ended up going super well and I really enjoyed it. So then when we got to the boot camp, I felt a lot more comfortable. And it really tested my patience in a lot of ways. Like it was cool to work with so many different people because at some point in the program I probably worked with all 20 plus of my cohort mates. So the experience of working with so many different personalities was like it's just so, I don't know, like certain times tested my patience. Other times I'd be working with people that knew more than me, and they, I had to kind of slow them down and ask them what was happening. So I think it's just a good exercise in like dealing with people in general. But I mean, I really enjoy it. Like I like, I don't know how much, well, I guess we can talk after about like if this is something that is actually like done on the job, but I really enjoy getting to work with different people and to learn from them. So I like it, but it can be hard at times and scary if the person that you're with knows a lot more than you do. So this pretty much aligns with everything I was thinking.
Yeah. Wavy?
Yeah, so for me, I think that I tend to be a quiet person to begin with. And my first time pairing, I was totally like steamrolled because I was just so afraid to say, I don't know this, or how to say it, I guess, more importantly. But after I finally kind of got more comfortable with like voicing what I like my thoughts and asking questions, I actually chose at my boot camp. We have 5 of them. Me and Jessica went to the same boot camp, by the way, people don't know. We have 5 projects, and I actually chose to do 4 of them with a partner because I realized that actually collaborating with other people is like my favorite part, because whether like sometimes I would be the one who actually knew more than the other person, and I actually enjoyed having them ask me questions, because sometimes I'm like, actually, wait, I don't know as much as I thought I really did. So then we would like learn together in that way, or like working with someone else. Now I'm still working on it, but like being able to say, wait, can you slow down? Can you explain this to me? So I don't know. I want to keep doing pairing. And I think if anything, I get more nervous by myself because I like having that other person to be there to be like, hey, what do you think? And like having a conversation, be like, yeah, like that makes sense. So having that feedback, I guess, but so far so good.
Awesome. Aisha, do you have any experience with pair programming?
So my boot camp, most of our projects were solo, but we did have only 2 projects where it was like a group project. So I do have a bit of experience, but we didn't do too much of the whole driver navigator sort of thing. But I do have paired programming experience in terms of like technical interviews. And those are very difficult for me because I know that the interviewer knows so much more than I do. And I feel like I tend to panic and I don't know what to do when I don't know how to solve something. And that's something that I guess need more practice on. I guess how to, yeah, like just how to say, I don't know how to solve this, but can you walk me through it? Like, yeah, and like how to, I guess, suppress my anxiety when I'm working with someone who's like so much more knowledgeable than I am. But through this the Collab lab, I feel like it's been really great working with everyone from the team, and like knowing that I know some things that they don't know, but they know some things that I don't know. So like we're kind of learning from each other. Yeah, so it's been good so far. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I still get nervous. Like I think I enjoy pair programming, but I don't have as much experience as you all do at it. And so it's one of those things I keep, like when I go into it, I enjoy it at the end, but every time I schedule a pair programming session, I have PTSD about interviews. So I'm like, oh God, I'm only, I'm 4 months in with Zapier and I'm still just like, still have, imposter syndrome about certain things. So I'm like, oh, this like code base is really huge and unwieldy and I don't know Python very well and it's going to be really horrible and they're going to like figure out that I don't actually know as much as they hired me to know and then I'm going to get fired. So no, I get the anxiety, but it also like after you do it enough, it kind of makes you realize it actually can be defeat that kind of imposter syndrome. So, Kevin, you have any thoughts on that or anything else?
Yeah, kind of what everyone else said. Also, having done a boot camp that was pretty intensive on the pair programming for like all of the learning modules, even just for like the daily exercises and stuff. I really enjoy it. It's nice to be able to kind of like trade off on the driving workload, but I also really like being the navigator and kind of being able to like research off the ball when like some things like somebody can kind of keep hacking away and like guessing and checking, and then you're kind of like somewhere in a Stack Overflow, like maybe try this, and like that kind of collaborative is really fun kind of method sometimes. But definitely, yeah, see other times where it's like, man, I just really need to like get this in my own IDE and just like chop at it for a while, do it my own way, even if it's the hard way. But sometimes it's also a blessing when somebody shows you the easy way and you didn't know it. And it makes a lot more sense when somebody can like just walk you through it versus trying to reinvent the wheel on a problem. To be able to move forward with something is really nice.
Sweet. And have y'all, I was watching one of the previous sessions for this learning module, and some of the group, oh yeah, I'll share this thing about the learning more, but somebody over there was talking about this. If you use VS Code, they were talking about this collaborative
Live share?
Live share. Have any of y'all used this? Because I just messed around with it and I thought it was super fascinating.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think we all used it. Yeah.
Have you used it? Okay.
Yeah, I think all.
What's that?
Oh,
have you used it for the Collab Lab or?
Yes. Yes.
Kevin
we
and
tried
I
to use it this week.
Yeah.
And it got a little wonky. I don't know if it's like some kind of port issue or like Windows to Mac or something. It happened quite a bit in my cohort too, but not all the time. It just seems like some days it wants to start writing or deleting code, like when you save. And it seems like the files get off somehow. Like with Jessica and I this week, we had like a component that was a lowercase, like add item had a capital A and it's saved in the repo as like a lowercase a or camel case. And somehow it was like waffling between the two. So every time we'd save, it would just like take a whole block of code out or multiply the code. And that made it kind of hard. So we kind of just switched to a screen share. But there's other times where it's worked wonderfully. But I think
Wait,
if you
Kevin,
start
do you have
adding
a
and
Windows
removing actual
computer?
files and stuff like that, it gets a little turned around.
Do you have Windows, Kevin?
Yeah,
I do, yeah.
Because yeah, I've never. I used it in the boot camp, and we all have Mac. I don't know if that is the issue, but I never had an issue until working with you.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I used to have a Mac laptop that kind of broke on me in the final days of boot camp, so I had to run out and get a big Windows desktop for cheap. But now that's what I've got. So
thought it was cool that you can do this shared terminal. I just spun that. I shared a link in the chat in case anybody wants to come and destroy my computer. But I like the idea that you can share servers, terminals. I didn't realize it was so comprehensive, and you can even start audio calls
Yeah.
on it.
They've been really
and-
beefing it up in a hurry during this time too, for that reason.
Okay. Yeah.
It's pretty
Cool.
cool with the GitHub, like, yeah, sign in and everything. And yeah, I don't know how some boot camps would do it if there wasn't in this era. We weren't in 2020 when this pandemic hit. There's so many digital tools.
For sure.
Just
Yeah.
in general, video chat for this.
We did
lot
some of the
crazier.
pair program. We also used like the Zoom screen control too. And that was
Oh, yeah.
kind of nifty.
Oh, there's a Zoom extension or app for pairing.
Well, it's just like if you grant me position and you share your screen, I can go into your screen and like do whatever I want.
Oh,
that-
gotcha.
Remote
Okay.
desktop.
Okay. All right. I've not messed about with that.
Or like
Cool.
presenting stuff. Yeah.
Well, does anybody have any questions or other comments about pairing? I feel like it was on the light side of a lesson because you all have way more experience than I do at this.
I would love to hear if you guys like if it's a thing in jobs, like if I know Sky, you said you'd signed up for pairing, like how, I guess it probably depends on the company, but is it something that for those of you that have either like worked at different companies or just in your experience so far, like if it's really anything that you get to do on the job ever?
I do. I have the opportunity to, but I haven't found myself falling into the habit. I think I probably should more. Like I'm working on an engineering team where right now it's really small. It's just me and another developer, and she's great. She's a bit more senior than I am, or we're kind of on the same par, I'd say, like skill wise, but she's more tenured and knows the code base. So she knows everything. And so I get stuck a lot. I'm like, oh, where is this? She's like, oh, let's just hop on a call. So we'll do like 5-minute pairing sessions just to do quick on blocks, but we haven't done like a proper, like sit and work on a feature. And we actually just scheduled our first one this week because she created this repo, this new service that we have, and she's really been the only person banging on it for 3 or 4 months now, and it's something I need to get on board with for my next project. So it's kind of like, all right, we're going to pair on this next feature so you can kind of show me the ropes of, like, what's what. So I don't know about you, Eddie, or
Yeah, same here. So we didn't do any pair programming. Like I felt like we didn't have time for it. And then I was supposed to do this learning module last cohort. So I was like, 2 weeks before I was like, let me do some pair programming with the junior developers. And then some of them are in the office, some of them are working remote. So I tried it both. It was like, hey, if you're working on this feature, like, and you're almost done, let's just, either, come to my desk or I'll come to your desk and we'll kind of work on it together if you're having any issues. So that's how we've been doing it. Usually when someone gets stuck, we don't go like the big feature and like we both sit down and like, try to like work out this feature. But usually if it's bugs or something like that, we'll jump on a call or I'll pull up my chair next to them and be like, hey, like, let's start coding, and I'll take control for a minute, and then the next person, that person will come in, and I try, because sometimes like once you get going, you're going and you just want to like finish it out. But I'll just, I don't want to answer anything for them. So I just kind of like, I'll stop and I'll be like, I'm just going to stop here and let you take your turn and then let them finish out. And then they'll just like kill it from there. And then they'll go explaining stuff throughout the code. We'll like both talk and kind of try to figure out whatever needs to be done. But that's the experience I have. Melly?
You hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, it's like the same for me. It's not like in the last company I worked on, it's not like we have like per programming schedule or something. And most of the features that we made is just like everyone gets one and you work on it. But if you have troubles or if you're stuck, and then we're like, let's hop on a call. And it was pretty fun because there were like 4 guys and me. So in the call, there were like everybody. So the person with the bug starts to share the screen, and we'll just ask questions and what you were trying to do here. Can you explain me this? Why if you do this better because it has more consistency or something like that. And it's actually pretty interesting because when it's with so much people, not only 2 people, you get like a lot of points of view and you get to a better solution, even if it's not yours. Or like sometimes you just think like the person with more knowledge has the better solution, but it's not. And when you start to share like all your opinions with the team, you get to a super solution, and it really worked good for us. So yeah, I don't have like super experience like per programming, but maybe team programming, maybe like that, like with a lot of people, and it's pretty fun. I learned a lot. That's what I'm obsessed with, consistency and clean code because of that meetings. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that check is good too, or like just for best practices and like cleaning things up, where like if you're just doing your own project, you're like, I'm just gonna leave these comments in here. I'm just gonna kind of do it because I know what I'm looking at. But when you have another set of eyes, you're like, oop, that would be best to like, do all the indents, all the semicolons, everything.
And Melly made a good point. Like sometimes you usually think like, oh, the experienced developer is going to have the best solution, and it doesn't always work. It's not always that way. Sometimes, the junior person or the mid-level person or the person who, I don't know, we have like, I'll switch from back end to front end, and we have a couple of developers that do that. Some are like more back end than front end, but they'll figure out a front end solution, and it's the best way to go. And he thought about it in a better way, more than, the experienced developer who's, using the flashy JS or whatever. I don't know, whatever the case may be, but, just keep that in mind. The experienced developer doesn't always have like the best solution.
Speak your minds, always, always, and question everything. Like I'm like a kid when someone is sharing the screen. It's like, what is that? Why are you doing that way? Why not that way? Why are you putting that here and that here? And you're going to learn a lot. Promise that.
Thank you.
That's the exciting part too, is that it's always changing or updating. So like as newer people to it, or like reading the latest docs that maybe like an experienced developer is like pretty comfy in their code base or whatever, not actually learning the new best ways to do stuff. So it's not like a traditional hierarchy of knowledge in that way.
Yeah, and there's always a million things to do things. So
yeah,
like I'll write code, and then a month later I'm like, why did I even write it that way?
I know, yeah.
I could have returned early, and just like, why did I use that if else? I just could have returned early and called it quits. So, yeah. But I think we're ready for Sky. Are you good? Or
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just making a quick small edit here. There we go.
I think that's funny, like code cringe. It's like looking back at like old journals or like art. You're like, oh boy, like that's definitely gonna be when I look back at like some projects, I think, in the years to come.
Yeah, we use, to mess around, we kind of use git blame. And
what?
Git blame. It kind of shows
blame.
you. Yeah. It shows you like who wrote the code. So when you're looking at it, like you see, like I don't use it a lot. They just like type it in. They're like git blame, and then it shows you kind of on your editor like who wrote the code at the time. And we're always like, like wrote this.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. Oh God.
Yeah, and oftentimes when you git blame, so like git blame is a command like git clone, git pull, git whatever, but also it exists here in it also exists here in the UI. And so this actually brings me, I don't know, you probably all know this, but there's a fun shortcut if you don't want to go mucking about clicking through things. If you know where you want to go and you are on this main, if you're on any of the file screens, any of the code screens, you can hit the letter T on your keyboard and it brings you to like a nice little file finder. And so you can, you know, I don't know, we have a home component. And so you can just like, see, I told you can't type. And so you can just find one and we can be like, okay, list view. And then sweet, you see the code here, but you got a nice little button that says blame right here. If you do that, you can see what commits changed anything. So you can be like, gosh, okay, something's really busted with this list view. Who did it? Who did this local storage thing? Convert all this.
Oh god.
I didn't know that.
Don't tell me.
It's so funny. I've seen
didn't
that
even
blame
know
and I've
there was
never
this.
known what it was. Oh, that is good to know.
I
That's-
use it all the time. And here's where it's like super, super helpful is if you're looking for like when something changed, you can be like, okay, cool. I want to see the previous version. So maybe like, maybe I suspect this, or maybe something, you know, maybe something before this. I want to see what it is. And the cool thing is you can click this icon, view blame prior to this change. If I click that, it's going to bring me, if you look up on my address bar, that's a commit hash. It's bring me back to before that was introduced. And now I'm on this file as of, you know, I guess I would expect a date, but there's not a date here. But you're basically on the previous version to that change. And then we've got 10 days ago, 13 days ago. So if I go back, you can drill even further, click on that, bam. And then 13 days ago, this is the origin of the file.
My God.
Yeah, right. And so
How
if
did
we
you
click
get
history,
there? Like,
here, I'll go back to, so if we just go to the root of the app, and you can do it anywhere. If you go into a file like source, components, and then home, it's just right here. You got blame right here.
I've always seen that. I never clicked it.
Now,
but how
if
did
you're
you
in any
do
of
that
the,
with the shortcut?
yeah,
T?
just the letter T on your keyboard. So just hit T,
Oh, T.
and you get T, and you get this blinking cursor, and you can literally do anything. If I want to see the package, what did I do? I did
T as
something
in
wrong.
tuna.
T as in tuna, yes, yeah. And so if I want to do, I don't know, components, I want to see all the things in the components folder. So it's a, you know, it's a very kind of loose matcher. So if I want to see everything with list, okay, well, cool. There's some other things. Yeah, list view, bam, there we go. And then from any file, you can do blame. Raw will incidentally just give you the raw file. The blame is really nice because it'll let you kind of step back in time as you can see who introduced a change and where. And so like, you know, you can go back in time, but you can also just go to this commit here. And then when you're here, okay, cool, I found a commit, but I actually want to see the pull request. It's kind of hidden, but you see this number 24 up here? You can click that and that'll actually bring you back to the PR that contains that commit. And so you can do some forensics there. Does that make sense? I can step through that again if you want. So if we're on the code page here, the letter T, T is in tango, you just hit T and it's bam, it's just it's a, you know, quick matching. You got every file in your repo. So let's just say we want to do app. Well, here we can do app CSS, app.js. Let's do app.js. Hit enter. Cool. There's the file. You can look at files in GitHub all you want, but we can also click blame here and you can see where things happened. And then I can be like, okay, well, cool. All right, what's this? Add async trial commit here. And then I can see everything that was changed in that commit. And then I can go up to this number 24 up by main. So it was merged into main branch with pull request number 24. Click that. And then I've got the pull request that contains that particular commit. So yeah, so that's kind of fun. A bit off topic, but I thought it would be worth sharing there.
Super useful.
Yeah, thank you.
Another,
Sky.
yeah, okay, so we'll go through the issue in a second. Curious if I'll save something for next week. We'll get back onto it. There's another keyboard shortcut, Y as in Yankee. If you want to look it up, it's super helpful in certain situations. So there's T and then Y right next to it. Cool. So issue number 7. Let's get bigger here. As a user, I want to see a welcoming prompt to add my first item if my list is empty to help me get oriented to how the app works. And the acceptance criteria is in the list view. When there are no items, we should show a prompt for the user to add their first item. That's pretty straightforward. And then the second one is, as a user, I want to mark an item on my shopping list as purchased so the app can learn about how often I buy different items. So user is able to tap a checkbox or similar UI element to mark an element in the list as purchased. Item should show as checked for 24 hours after the purchase is made. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. We assume the user does not need to buy the item again for at least 1 day. So I imagine there'll be some kind of like setting a timestamp of when that was checked. Did somebody...
Can you go back to number 7 again? It should show a prompt, a button. I don't like where is this going to be?
Let me see if there's. Let me look and see if there's a wireframe for this.
Yeah. Week. So I guess like on the list view page, a button there that would direct them to the add item page. I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And let's see, that's number 7.
Add item instead of create new lists. Because then that kind of the same behavior.
A list view, when there are no items to display, should show a prompt, a button for the user to add their first item. Go to the issue first. Let's see if there's a.
Yeah, I know there's wireframes somewhere, but I can't remember where they are.
Usually right.
Yeah, so I want to see a welcoming prompt. There's not a wire. Oh, wait, let's see. Yeah, I don't have a wireframe on this. Oh, I do have a wireframe here. Let me see if I can pull it up. Here we go. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So
I'll just link them to the next page.
Yeah, add item currently lives on another page. Now I guess we'll have some text or a button. These are not navigation tab. These are navigation tabs, not buttons. Okay. I don't gather that we're supposed to implement that. I think that's just, this is a mobile friendly. So maybe this is the item for the acceptance criteria, but if you haven't checked the app and how it presents on smaller screens, in the interest of being mobile first or mobile friendly, maybe just pull it up. One way to do that is just, I won't do it here, but if you go into your developer tools and you click this, if you're on Chrome, do you see this icon down here?
Mm-hmm.
This icon device toolbar here, you can then go ahead and, if you haven't done this before, you can choose any device. So we'll choose an iPhone 10 and see how that appears. Well, it turns out that GitHub kind of doesn't look great, but and I'll link the issue. So actually, let's take a peek at. Let's see, how does this page actually display? Okay, so GitHub is pretty
responsive,
remote friendly because it's got all these buttons and a nice display. You don't have to horizontally scroll. We could go ahead and we could test on an iPad Pro. Yeah, fit to window. Cool. So you can kind of see how that would appear there, and then you can give it any kind of like arbitrary. Another fun thing is you can actually slow down your internet. So Chrome here will simulate a slow connection. We don't need to do that, but you can rotate it as well. So if you turn the iPad on its side, how is it going to present? You can get that if you just open the Chrome Dev Tools and you click this toggle device. So you could open up the app and see how it presents. Anyhow, I digress again. Issue 2. Yeah, this one's obviously a bit more complicated. You're going to be able to mark something as purchased, and then it should remain checked for 24 hours. So imagine you'd want to persist that in the database as a timestamp because the database won't be able to like self-expire some kind of values. So there's going to be some logic that you'll do there, maybe like a purchased at or something like that. Do you have any other questions on either of these issues?
With 7 feeling a little simpler, would it, or like pretty quick, considering we kind of have a new list button already, sort of almost just using that label. Would it be an opportunity maybe for one of the teams to like kind of style up or like break down some more components or other things, maybe while we're all as a team here? Or do we want to stick really to the script and just kind of
I mean, I guess I would ask Eddie for advice here, but I am inclined to say, you know, work on maybe the async await, some UI. Yeah, I mean, it's your project. But if Eddie things, I guess I haven't looked at what's ahead, so we certainly don't want to plow over everything coming up.
Yeah, I think Sky's like right on. Some of the tickets coming up are going to be like styling and stuff like that. So, you know, yeah, I would suggest like, you know, work on something else, the async await or whatever else you want to try to do to improve it. It's also your project as well. So, but some of the tickets coming up are going to be like styling tickets, and you guys deciding on like how you want to bring in the CSS, and if you want to bring in a library or if you just want to hand roll it. So yeah, I would say try to stay away from the styling like right now.
It looks like the last ticket is, as a user, I want the app to look professional and welcoming. And
yeah,
so it's
Stacy had mentioned that. It's kind of like sort of always there.
Typography, colors, iconography. Yeah. Yeah, I would say, yeah. Do what you want. Don't just look at ticket 13 and make sure you don't, you know, shoot yourself in the foot and have nothing to do on the last week.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Does anybody have a preference for one issue or the other? You know, kind of this smaller issue with some flexibility to go and refactor some stuff, or 8, which is going to be, you know, a bit meatier and you know, get to a bit of balance of UI and database work. Boop, 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 boop.
I'm good with either. Are we back to our first week pairing kind of in this round robin style?
I think so. I'm assuming.
That would make sense.
Yeah, I'm assuming I'm back with Maisha.
Wavy, any thoughts?
Not really. I'm open to either.
They both sound good.
All right.
Okay, I'll say that me and Maisha can take 8, and you guys can.
Great. So around 7 this week.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to, like, if there's anything that you guys discover or.
Yeah, maybe when I implement.
Yeah.
I'll let you guys have some fun with it, or like refactoring it. Whatever.
Freestyle, we'll switch it to QR codes instead of tokens or something.
That would be awesome. Just scan your friend's token. That actually, seriously, that would be, yeah. You joke, but that'd be wild. QR tokens, QRs aren't actually too crazy. And I threw on these little camels because right between these two issues is halfway to the end of the project. So
holy moly!
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
Whoa!
yeah.
Dang,
Yeah.
that was quick.
Right, because the last week is just styling. So we're like
Oh my
almost done.
gosh.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it's
Maisha
week
to the
4.
cosmos.
Why am I invisible?
Yeah,
There's something wrong with
I thought
my
you
computer.
dropped
I'm
off.
so sorry. Like it's just like I don't know.
We got too dark outside to recognize you or something.
Maybe.
Deep
Gone the way
space,
of dark matter.
space mage.
Cool. Well, we're 13 over. We have a tendency to go long, probably because I talk too much. But it was a fun
I like it.
meetup. Happy Sunday.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I will post some things in the channel about T and Y for GitHub because they will make your Git foo much faster. Cool. See you all next Sunday. And who's doing office hours this week?
Me.
All right. And do we have kind of an idea for time, or do you want to just sort that out in the channel?
Yeah, I need to look at my calendar for this week. I will let you know, guys.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Nice to see you guys.
Good to see everybody
Ready?
next Sunday.
All right. See ya.
Everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
I-
Bye.